You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast from the Film Magazine where we talk about topics in film theory, criticism, history, and whatever we can bend into a podcast episode. My name is Jacob, and I'm the one who is probably going to end up being governed by idiots that would read this unironically.
I'm Sam. I'm the one who's just woken up from a sexy Jesus stream.
I'm Kieran. I was originally a hand-drawn animation, but I'm now the live-action version.
Ooh.
And a lot less good for it.
Yeah. You were Academy Award winning when you were drawn.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, so we found this article on Conservapedia. Sorry, I found this article called Essay Worst Liberal Movies. It is not an essay. It's just it's a Wikipedia-esque listicle on Conservapedia, and I think it was developed in the mid-2010s. I'll read the note at the top of the page. This is in contrast, by the way. See also Greatest Conservative Movies. We at Conservapedia do not care. This is a note. There's no intro. There's a note. We at Conservapedia do not care if a movie is considered a classic or that it is a famous movie that many have nostalgia for. If it has noticeable and relevant liberal elements, and or the creators of a certain movie had some liberal agenda in mind when crafting the story's narrative, we call it out. Just because people love movies does not mean Hollywood isn't trying to push a liberal agenda with them.
Yeah, can we just point that out? It says Hollywood trying to push a liberal agenda, despite on their list very early on it has Battleship Potemkin.
Yes, and if you go to the talk page for this, Japanese films do not count as Hollywood. There aren't as many leftists or SJWs in Japan. They're sure to let us know.
Yep.
The talk page, by the way, is where people who edit the page fight about what should or should not be on the page. So, yeah, but talking specifically about liberal elements or the liberal agenda, yeah, Battleship Potemkin sort of betrays the... See, I don't want to say misunderstanding because I suppose it's up to interpretation, but their belief of political alignments. Here in America, conservatives have a very dualistic view, probably because of our structure in terms of two parties. You are either conservative and good or liberal and bad in the mind of the American conservative.
Yeah, I mean, I would say over here we're a bit less kind of bifurcated like that, but it's become more and more like that for us in the past couple of elections, really. You know, all the culture wars stuff and everything like that. Basically, it's just like, okay, if you don't believe exactly what I believe and you don't parrot back to me in my echo chamber exactly what I've just said, then you must be making a personal attack against me, and I must respond aggressively to that. It's the world we live in now, and it's quite scary.
Yeah.
And I'll do my quick bit of random history thing that I learned in the past few months of where left and right actually comes from, which is the around the time of the French Revolution. I think it was just after, but it was a system that was brought in sort of the just after. Let me look it up.
I think it was before.
It was after, during, something like that, when they were kind of trying to put it back together again. And essentially when they started to open parliaments up again, essentially you had the aristocrats on one side and the radicals on the other, and it of the room. And so therefore it literally was the aristocrat conservatives were on the right and the kind of liberal radicals were on the left. And now that's the literalness of that is no longer held, but it's just kind of been taken into a thing. I don't know who sat in the middle. Just one bloke, I guess, going, I don't give a damn, just give me my paycheck, maybe.
Both sides are bad. That guy.
Yeah. It's the equivalent of, I mean, I don't know if Sam had this at university in the UK, but whenever the rugby is, or the football is on, well, especially in Wales, whenever the rugby was on, especially the Six Nations, you'd go down to our student union and you'd have all the English supporters on one side of the room and all the Welsh supporters on the other side of the room, and then be one guy cheering for France in the middle, even though France weren't playing.
Yeah.
And to continue to demonstrate the absurdity, we can go through a few of our favorites, but this list has Triumph of the Will, a German, not Hollywood film, It says the most infamous Nazi propaganda film, parentheses, even though the left denies it, the Nazis are in truth left-wing National Socialists. Well, left-wing National Socialists are different from liberals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of the oldest kind of nonsense arguments, basically, that just because they've got socialists in their name doesn't make them socialists politically. It's just
it's like not trying to insult anybody that's obviously not listening from there, but the Democratic Republic of the Congo. When you have to put democratic
of
in
North
the name,
Korea,
you're kind of calling yourself out there.
Yeah.
Democratic People's Republic of North Korea or whatever. And then V for Vendetta blatantly glorifies anarchism, not liberal, socialism, not liberal, communism, not liberal, and homosexuality, which that's part of the liberal agenda. Let's be fair. I'll be fair to them on that.
Yeah, it's complete our agenda.
Well, guys, do you have...
Just
Go, Sam. Oh, okay. Do you have favorites that didn't make your final cut?
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say that they do seem to put way too much thought and energy into a lot of these, like all these kind of quite undemanding kids films, but they're convinced that they're all part of some vast conspiracies to corrupt their children or turn them gay and left wing or something. I don't know.
Yes. Thank you, Sam. Finally.
Cars 2 is on their list of things they don't like, which I don't understand.
I mean, so Lightyear is on here, and it's of all Pixar films, it's probably the most inconsequential of them all. It just kind of passes you by and doesn't leave an impression at all. I think I've seen it and I don't remember it at all. But their description of it was described as a gay Toy Story filled with pro-homosexual propaganda for kids. Produced by Disney, this film ignores all the events from the great conservative film about Buzz Lightyear, released 22 years prior. Was the usual Toy Story a conservative film? Did it have a political agenda in any regard?
Apparently so.
Well, do they mean a different Buzz Lightyear film released in the year like 2000? Or I don't remember what year Lightyear came out. But
yes, so it's Lightyear came out in 2022. So 22 years prior, let's talk about 2000. So what's that? That's Toy Story 2, then, isn't it?
Yes, the great conservative film, Toy Story 2.
Yeah, and then they had to add on additional notes at the end of this. By the way, disappointing 55 million opening. I mean, because what's that? I mean, that thing they keep trotting out: "Go woke, go broke." You know, they blame like any kind of failure on it's gone too woke. You know, it's not. It's putting off audiences. You know, the old-fashioned audiences who likes it, you know, when men were men and no one talks about, anything anything that wasn't heteronormative, you know. I mean, and in terms of like being a gay Toy Story, yes, there is a gay character in Lightyear, but it's not one of the main characters. It's a side character. There's one scene when you see them in that relationship. He's one of Buzz's kind of fellow space ranger people, but. Yeah, it's just, and I think as you pointed out, so Jake, like when we were talking about this during the week, they could have easily cut that scene out in like other territories. I'm sure, and
did for Russia and a couple other places.
Yeah.
Apparently, Wreck-It Ralph is a conservative movie.
Understandable. Well, Sam,
and I only bring this up because the one I actually go ahead. I've just been fascinated by how much I agree or disagree with their thing on the Emoji Movie.
Sam, you mentioned the gay agenda. I brought that up too. They have a Hollywood Values article, also known today as Holly Woke or Holly Weird Values. They are immoral behaviors originating in or popularized by the American film industry, characterized by spreading sexually transmitted diseases, public obscenities, decadence, narcissism, hypocrisy, rampant drug use, abortion, adultery, lawlessness, violence, and the promotion of the homosexual agenda and cultural Marxism.
But it always comes down to, them being uncomfortable with acknowledging the fact that gay people exist. And you often, even like the not quite far right kind of people, you hear people can't say, "Oh, I don't have a problem with gay people. Just they don't need to rub it in our faces." So basically, as long as you don't tell us, we haven't got a problem. You don't have a right to kind of express yourself and speak your own truth and everything. It's just, and there's this weird, real weird kind of, it's a bit of a tangent, but there's this weird kind of they equate homosexuality or anything that not heteronormative relationships with sex. It's automatically a sexualized thing if it's not a straight relationship. Which is just, what is wrong with these people?
Yeah,
a lot. My question, Jacob, how much? And I'm going for if you know any that are really, really extremely conservative, and I'm guessing that's not the type of people you try and hang around with normally.
I'm related to some of them, but keep going.
I was going to say accidentally, perhaps, but I mean, sorry, I said try to hang around with. What is their opinion on like Rome and like the Roman Empire? Because the Roman Empire, the amount of like Caesars and that who had like eunuchs and stuff and were like kind of barely overtly homosexual, but then Rome was like order and the power of the military and everything like that, and classical reason, which I would have thought is a lot about conservative values. It's like a mix of things that they do and don't. So
it's very complicated. So the simple answer is Rome was brought down by homosexuality and all of these things. And if America is going to learn from the fall of the Roman Empire, it's that we need to stop the woke, which used to be PC and SJW and whatever the buzzword was before PC, when people were whining about this in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, simple answer is you promote the ideas that you approve of that fits your worldview, and you either deny the other things exist or you just ignore them.
Yeah. Kira, did you have a favorite entry on this list that didn't make your watch the movie cut?
I mean, there was some that were just generally interesting, but then I came across this one just now for the Emoji Movie, and some of them I don't agree with. Like they're trying to say stuff. It goes, openly homosexual writer and director Tony Leondis considers the movie a deeply personal subject for him and all that stuff. Then he's like, praises sinful sexuality.
Wait, the Emoji Movie? He considers it deeply personal.
Yes. Stuff like that, but then it goes, and it also says, like T.J. Miller said, the film is a subtle protest against Donald Trump based on allegations that Trump wanted to censor Hollywood and other liberally biased media. Okay, I can see how they'd like that, and I don't. But then they also go, not only is this film clearly an infomercial for various smartphone applications and features thinly disguised as an unoriginal take on the hero's journey or archetype, but it appears to devalue human language. I'm like, I agree with all of this stuff. Like, main teenager Alex can only win over his crush by communicating via text messages comprised exclusively of emojis, and a background teenager even says words aren't cool. I agree that that's not good. And then it goes, the film briefly glorifies Facebook, the world's largest social network and a hotbed for narcissism and relationship destruction. I agree that is bad. Like,
that's actually quite a good kind of snippy, kind of slightly sardonic review, isn't it?
It then has an attack on, gives minor lip service to feminism in the form of Jailbreak, a computer hacker girl emoji who refuses to be the princess emoji she was created to be. Apparently, trying to follow your dreams and do what you want is not conservative. But then in the thing, it then goes on and says it's not as good as Wreck-It Ralph. But I then went and vaguely found their thing for Wreck-It Ralph. And if I can re-find it, one of the things it liked was the fact that Ralph apparently wants to escape after being typecast for 30 years as the poor and medalless guy, encouraged to use his equal opportunities to do better and pursue his own success. This is the basis of the American dream, the goal of overcoming one's present lowly circumstances in achievement of greatness. So do they not like people pursuing their own dreams, or is they only like it when they're men?
Yeah, Kieran, what's the difference between Ralph and the princess emoji? Quick.
I was going to say, yeah. This is I think we're getting the kind of thing here. I'm now actually going to very quickly go down the kind of conservative things and see if there are any female directors, directors of non-white origin, that kind of thing that I can.
I mean,
Black Panther is on there.
If they were still using this, if they're still updating this list like up to date, you know that like Barbie would be on there. Don't
It
you?
is.
Okay, I'm now very confused. Admittedly, it's a film that I've
I'm
yet
very
to get around for. No, I've yet to get around to this.
Kieran's becoming conservative, guys.
No, it's the fact that on this list of greatest conservative movies, right? If I were to say last 100 years of all the stories, texts, books, films, kinds of thing, which one would you say is very kind of liberal and kind of anti kind of governmental regime kind of thing? Give me a list of stuff.
Easy Rider.
Not Easy Rider, no.
Anti-government.
Yes.
I don't know.
Anti-oppressive regime.
Oh,
kind of
The
thing.
Hunger Games.
No, breaking out of the system. Think stuff that you.
1984.
1984. The 1984 version is on the list of greatest conservative movies.
Well,
Wow.
guys, that's because Orwell hated socialists. You know that.
I don't understand.
Orwell, if you didn't know, wrote Animal Farm, which was anti-communist. Therefore, 1984 is conservative. Now ignore all of the parallels between 1984 and the Emoji Movie, and the destruction of language by the party. We seem to have lost Kieran.
I mean, just looking first down the list, the recent live-action Lone Ranger. I say recent; it's 11 years old now. Jesus Christ, that makes me old. That makes me feel old.
Starring the cannibal.
Yeah. They don't have a problem with. I haven't been in. They don't even have a problem with Johnny Depp playing a Native American. The main problem with it is that Tonto is played by liberal pot smoker Johnny Depp.
Yes. So, I have a favorite entry, but on the talk page for the worst liberal movies, there's bestiality in Avatar is a topic of discussion.
Sure.
I know this is an old topic, but I digress. At least with The Lord of the Rings, the elves were extremely similar to humans, similar enough to pass as such. Only difference being elves had pointy ears. Also lived a long time. Let's don't leave that out. Avatar's situation, however, has him striking a romance with an alien that clearly doesn't even look remotely human. Probably the closest thing to them being human is that they were bipeds. So you can probably see why this would be considered bestiality. One user answers, but someone says, if I recall correctly in The Lord of the Rings, the human protagonist Aragorn has a creepy romance with an elvish woman. While I'm in favor of Avatar's inclusion on the list, I find this particular criticism of bestiality a bit bizarre, and I have to agree. Someone is thinking way too much about whether or not it's bestiality when the guy in the avatar of a Na'vi has sex with another Na'vi.
I did see the entry for Shape of Water, like further down the list as well, and they seem to have much less problem with the fish sex aspect of it than they did about like its kind of main political points. In fact, it's a Cold War film, and it's kind of anti the regime at the time.
But also on the list is Trumbo, where it's like it's anti-Hollywood blacklist. So are they pro 1950s government or not? I'm very confused. There's a lot of dissonance on this list, but reading through this list yesterday, Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas. This one is debatable. There's the debatable section, which I love.
I mean, again, the ones they pick, the most insubstantial, just, in one year out and out the other movies you could ever think of, the Disney direct-to-video sequels.
Yeah, paints Christmas in a positive light, and has a beast learning the meaning behind it, as well as putting aside the past, relating to it being the reason he was cursed. also significantly tones down the more feminist messaging of the original film. Phew, that's good. The manner in which Christmas was depicted, however, was closer to the secular view of Christmas than the actual intended meaning of the holiday, being a celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ. The movie overall, however, is objectively of very low quality, and pretty forgettable to say the least. And since it is a direct-to-video sequel/midquel realized by another studio, now defunct, and with a lot of incoherences, it's not even canon in the universe of the original animated classic that preceded it. So, yeah. There's a grown man who thought way too much about this movie.
I'm surprised they didn't have more problems with like the queer-coded villain in it. You know, Tim Curry voicing a very camp talking
organ.
Was he an organ? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we watched that last night, and it's I don't see how you get any political. So at the core of this, Kieran was asking, what is the point here? I mean, it comes back to the whether you look at it from the Stuart Hall encoding decoding perspective, or you look at the death of the author Bart sort of stuff. This is about how the audience interprets the movie. Based on their own political values and sort of trying to strap that onto it. I wrote a piece about Joker saying that it was leftist. Is Joker leftist? Probably not. But you can read that into it. There's an interpretation of it there.
Yeah, and there's always that argument, isn't there, that you can read stuff into a piece of art that the creator didn't intend, and it's a valid reason, if you can kind of if that's the way you respond to kind of what you're seeing, but equally, I think if you bring in too much of your own kind of baggage into your media analysis, then you're going to come out with something that's a little bit warped in its way.
Yeah, and looking too hard to find the hidden liberal Hollywood agenda in any movie. You're just going to start seeing it everywhere if that is what you were looking for. The Bohemian Rhapsody, debatably liberal one, is also interesting to me. Seeing it was directed by a gay man about a bisexual or gay man, and it talks about how it shows homosexuality, but he dies of AIDS, which is a consequence of homosexuality. And at the end of his life, he is with a woman. And one of the gay guys is bad. And it's like, guys, obviously it's pro Freddie Mercury and pro, it's not pro gay, but it's...
I mean, a lot of the things on the list, they come down to, again, like a misunderstanding of kind of how you view media. And that, whatever your political views are, even if, these films that, approaching a subject matter or a political kind of methodology you don't agree with, it's like depiction isn't endorsement. Just because you're showing that in your film doesn't mean we're saying this is good. It's like, so it's like watching a slasher movie and saying, well, because we're seeing all these teenagers being killed, this filmmaker must be pro teenagers being killed.
It's pro murder. Also, I'm fascinated that they tried at all to wade into UK politics with Hidden Agenda, depicts the IRA oppressed freedom fighters while painting unionists as monsters. Are they pro or anti-IRA? I'm very confused, and I think they are as well. It doesn't speak highly of Margaret Thatcher either. Yeah. I don't know how many Brits do.
I really don't think any American writers should unless they've got Irish connections, should attempt to explain the troubles in Northern Ireland, particularly.
No, I love all of the simplistic names that Irish and Scottish people have for things like the starving times and the troubles. It's so quaint to me over here.
There is a period of
not to make light of it.
There is a period of Ukrainian history known as the Ruins. So I think when that's coming in, you've definitely got issues.
Kieran,
right? I think we should probably get into our films before we have any more technical problems.
Yeah, I was momentarily down and out in Paris and London, but I am back.
Good. Glad to have you. So I found on the list The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It is under debatable whether liberal. So this is one they're unsure about. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, of course, is a 1996 Disney film. It is based on the Victor Hugo novel of the same name. And they say in there, they have a full article about the movie. Due to the original story being not kid-friendly in the slightest, a lot was changed to keep a lighter tone. Although it's been described by the filmmakers as the most R-rated G movie you ever seen. There's a lot of really bad grammar.
But I wouldn't deny it's the darkest of the Disney Renaissance by quite some way.
It's very dark, and I had never seen it before, which is why I chose to do it. I wanted, because the crux of their discussion is on the religious aspects of the film. So here is their blurb. Released during Michael Eisner's presidency at Disney, the film presents a mixed package. The original source material was not intended for children, yet the Disney film was marketed as such to young audiences. Duh? Who else would it be marketed to?
They haven't started on Alien yet, so of course they're going to.
In some cases, the film manages to be slightly more pro-Christian than its source material. For example, the character of Frollo, who is the corrupt archdeacon in the novel, is now the Minister of Justice, and they don't pick up on the anti-government aspect of that, by the way. They were not quick to that. Is now the Minister...
I will just say very, very, very quickly, I haven't read the novel.
I read bits of it.
Yeah, and then many years ago, I also saw the 1923 silent version, but I can remember not much of that.
I mean, I do know that kind of next to none of the adaptations, like over a century, have dared have Frollo actually as part of the church. You know, they tend to keep that change. They just make it a bit more vague.
Yeah. And by the way, the list of people that have played Quasimodo is great. It's Lon Chaney, Charles, the dude that directed... Thank you, Lawton. Anthony Hopkins played him. I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, just incredible group of people, none of whom have deformities, as far as I'm aware. So Frollo, yeah, he is not the Archdeacon. The Archdeacon is a separate character voiced by Davis Ogden Stiers. You don't need to say that. Who serves as the positive Christian conscience of the film, albeit the only positive Christian conscience. The Archdeacon is responsible for saving Quasimodo from Frollo committing infanticide and encourages Esmeralda to pray to God. Phoebus is also depicted in a good light, an honorable soldier who is also shown to genuinely love Esmeralda, even going so far as to save her as well as Quasimodo, in stark contrast to the book, where he is a callous womanizer who abandoned Esmeralda to being hanged. It should be noted that he thought Esmeralda tried to murder him, but they don't make that note. By the way, Kieran, the book it's a slog, but it's interesting.
It's Victor Hugo, isn't it? So it would be.
Christian imagery is present throughout the film, appropriate since Notre Dame is an actual location. By the way, that's what the book is about. It's about the building, and the characters are just kind of there, present in and around it. Appropriate since Notre Dame is an actual location, as opposed to several Disney films during the Renaissance, where churches are absent of religious imagery to be more politically correct. The Latin Requiem Mass is also present in the musical score. Unlike most films of the Disney animated canon, this film actually has the characters, apostrophe S, the characters relying to God's grace to resolve the conflict instead of relying on some special magic. And then...
I like special magic, though.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with stories having magic. On the other hand, in some cases, the film actually manages to be even darker than the original novel. But it's not. It takes away some of the death. Originally, it takes away the attempted rape. Quasimodo's vicious punishment at the hands of Parisians during the Feast of Fools ceremony was out of corporal punishment. In the Disney film, it is done at the whim of the Parisians just for the sake of it. I don't know how that's liberal. In addition, Frollo himself was also made significantly more villainous in the movie compared to the book, despite being separated from the Archdeacon role, removing most of his redeemable traits in the book, which are that he's an Archdeacon. I don't know what the redeeming traits are. I guess that he took Quasimodo in.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
he wanted him.
He's still religious in the film, isn't he? He's tormented. His soul's tormented by his lust for Esmeralda. So he's a man of faith, but he's haunted by it.
I think even in the film, I think he's a man of faith to the point that it serves his ends, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, God, for allowing me to rule over everybody with an iron fist, kind of thing.
Well, because the first thing he does is kill Quasimodo's mom on the steps of a church. Like he's compulsively religious, because that's what people were in 1400s France. Also, they get the origin of Quasimodo's name wrong multiple times on this website. They say he's named after Quasimodo Tuesday. It's Quasimodo Sunday. That's very easy to check, because I looked into it before reading this blurb. Yeah, but in the book, apparently, he is more pro Quasimodo and nicer to him. But in the movie, he's really mean to him. Blah, blah, blah. Some Christian concepts were removed from the film in an attempt to increase Frollo's villainy as a result. Well, no shit. It's a kid's movie. They're going to make the villain bad. It's debatable whether it's pro-Christian overall, since while the archdeacon himself was a positive influence, most of the other Christian characters, without even counting Frollo, were nevertheless depicted in a very negative light. The director's commentary also implies that they may have engaged in blasphemous material by having Frollo in the crucifix pose as he's descending into hell during the visuals for Hellfire. I didn't notice that. The film, however, shows a clear case of divine punishment in animation, represented by the death of Frollo literally seeing the devil in the face before falling to his horrible death in the fiery pit. No, it's just a gargoyle, but I guess that's their interpretation.
It's not a fiery pit. It's the mob below with all their torches.
Yeah, well, and Quasimodo spilled molten lead all over the place, so he's falling into that. Yeah. To make the film even darker, a gypsy genocide plot is introduced. What does that have to do with...
Right, and are they arguing this as a positive or negative? Because with their fiscal leanings, I've no idea.
Yeah, so Paris is also it just says it happens. The song Hellfire is also notorious for making explicit reference to lust. It doesn't say the word lust. It's just very explicit that he is lusting for her. Not necessarily a bad or negative thing. It can be considered courageous, original, and surprising, and entertaining artistically speaking, and for families with kids who are not snowflakes. However, God, there's so many howevers in this blurb. This is a stark contrast to most other Disney film adaptations. So this goes on a tangent about the way Disney adapts things, so I'm going to skip that. The gypsies were depicted in a more positive light. I guess that's bad. To the extent they are at times considered preferable to Christianity, despite gypsies essentially being pagans. Hints at race swapping were also included in the film, as Esmeralda was made into an ethnic gypsy. What does that mean? In the movie, when in the original book, she was actually a blonde Parisian and Parisienne, because we have to feminize Parisian, and the daughter of an anchoress, I don't know what that is, who was abducted by the gypsies and made it to their own. Yeah, apparently in the book, Quasimodo and her are swapped at birth. Worst of all, one of the male gargoyles falls in love with Jolly, the goat.
An anchoress is a woman who chooses to withdraw from the world to live a solitary life of prayer and mortification. So they've got rid of a Christian character, therefore it's bad.
Who had a baby out of wedlock, apparently. So,
and never mind the fact there's only 90 minutes of this film, so we've got to cut things for time.
Yeah. Worst of all, one of the male gargoyles falls in love with Jolly, the goat, who is male according to some descriptions.
I love this bit. Yeah, according to some descriptions, and then.
Voiced, however, by a female voice actress, and fans mostly refer to it as a female goat, and probably the gargoyle confused Jolly with a female goat, assumption supported by his known clear stupidity, which may mean that the liberals will subtly shoehorn this homosexual agenda into anything, even the gargoyles of Notre Dame.
He's homosexual despite it not being a woman. Everyone refers to it not a woman, voiced by a female voice actor, and we think he's stupid anyway, therefore lusting after somebody who he thinks is a female. It's still gay, and that's bad. You pretty much disproved your own argument.
Yeah, I mean, random fact: the anthropomorphized gargoyles aren't from Victor Hugo, but the goat is. That's the character.
Yes, that was the craziest part. I read the scene where they're dancing, and she has the goat like do that trick where it counts like how many blah blah, and it taps it with like it's so crazy that that's in the book, and it's on the cover of one of the silent films. Like the goat is a selling point.
Yeah. Annoyingly, the goat is not called Hadron. They didn't carry that across.
So, anyways, basically the things amount to Disney is pro-Christian, maybe, but not pro-Christian enough, and maybe in support of gay cross-species / anthropomorphic gargoyle bestiality. Those were the things I was on the lookout for because I read this blurb before, and what comes across is it's going out of its way to not be anti-Christian, changing. And apparently, the Frollo is not the archdeacon in most adaptations to avoid the ire of Christians. And then the bit about hellfire and lust, like that's very much an aspect of Christianity and Catholicism. And then the goat thing is just ridiculous because it's clearly a comedy bit. They also note at the end that the director said that was a line they should not have crossed. A rarity, especially in today's media, where they are.
Yeah, but they get the name wrong there. Because they there go, on a positive note, it should be noted that the directors admitted that the implication that Hugo lusted after. Are they talking about, like, Victor Hugo?
No,
like...
Hugo the gargoyle, played by Jason Alexander.
Hugo the gargoyle? Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The gargoyles are Victor, Hugo, and the other one.
The other one. I forgot her name already.
Okay, that's not bad.
Well, so I focused a lot on the goat romance because that's the part that stood out to me so much. And it's just from way high up. He sees the goat and Esmeralda, and they go, "Oh, wow, what a beautiful creature." And Jason Alexander says, "And the lady in the outfit's not bad either." And then whenever they draw depictions of Esmeralda, he draws the goat. But there's no scene where, like, they're together or they make out or anything. And then also, this is wrong, because whenever Esmeralda refers to the goat, she calls it a he. So it is a male goat, and everything that they said about it being female is explicitly wrong based on the only pronoun that the goat is referred to in the movie. It's when Esmeralda first gets sanctuary in the church, and she says he doesn't like strangers or something. So yeah, I mean, the main point that comes across to me is a very liberal American point, which is everybody should be free in society. The Romani, the Gypsies, the people of the Court of Miracles, they are ultimately, good guys. They, despite being pagans, they are depicted as mostly good, and maybe not all thieves and terrible people. And the parallels could be more easily drawn to the way illegal immigrants are treated by American media and conservatives, and there's sort of a we should all get along there. All the outcasts should be embraced by larger society, as shown by the little girl accepting Quasimodo at the end. So is this a liberal movie? Yeah, it is. It's a milquetoast liberal movie from Disney, trying to put out a positive message to kids with very striking and interesting dark visuals. I would say that the gargoyles are the worst part of the movie, and Quasimodo as well. They really take away from a lot of the more interesting scenes, like the genocide scene is awesome, and the Hellfire musical number. So yeah, overall, framing the story from Quasimodo's perspective, which is apparently what all of the movies have decided to do, not just this one, I think it makes the story weaker overall. That is my review
what he said.
of of this movie.
I mean, putting aside that is one of my favorite Disney movies.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I really enjoy it.
It is decent, must be said.
But yeah, interestingly, the plan of attack on that one from this website.
And like I said, this movie has an entire section of the talk page dedicated to it, where they really get into the nitty gritty of whether Christianity is portrayed as good or not. And like, ultimately it doesn't land one way or the other. It's just a part of the world because Notre Dame is a church. Like, it does show the bad Christians who go during the Outcast song. They're like, God, help me. While Esmeralda, the pagan Romo, gypsy, whatever, is wandering around going, can you just help somebody else? I don't need help. Help the poor outcast people, which that's the message. And I would say that in the idealistic view of Christianity, that is also a Christian message. So, yeah. Is it pro-Christian? Sure, why not? I did look up, there's an opinion article from the Catholic Courier from the Diocese of Rochester, New York, where they talk about the pro-homosexual agenda of Disney. 1997, they're discussing that. And the Archdiocese of Oklahoma sold all of its Disney stock in response to the movie Priest from Miramax. And also, Our Sunday Visitor labeled Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame as NC, not for Catholics. So what did Catholics think of it at the time? They didn't like it.
It's amusing.
Yeah. Also, the New York Times, I read this as well. They said that in the warnings with violence and profanity and all that, the movie is sprinkled with Christian images, and there are specific references to God. You got it, folks. Not only does the New York Times not see what others see as offensive, it now finds it necessary to categorize references to God as equally dangerous to children as violent sex and profanity. So, that's from another Catholic article, the Catholic League.
Are they just people that will get offended at anything?
The Catholics? Yeah. Yes.
I mean, the Catholic League will come back up in my film. Don't you worry.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yes. Definitely.
Oh,
I'm really upset now that I didn't do something like Life of Brian.
Entertainment Weekly also remarked of the movie's sensual undertones and scary scenes, one of which it labeled hot and heavy. So I wonder if that's when he sniffs her, which it got a PG-13 rating. They had to take away the sniff sound. But it also mentions in Hellfire, there's he fantasizes about the curvaceous gypsy Esmeralda belly dancing inside the fire. She wears like a corset. She's not belly dancing. Anyway,
I'm sorry. I'm busy trying to. I'm busy trying to look up if things are on some of the lists just out of sheer interest. Yes. That one actually makes sense. That they've put greatest conservative movies and they put on The Exorcist. That one I agree with, because essentially the Catholic
it's
Church
very Christian.
Catholic Church endorsed it. They're like,
yeah.
it as a movie, it's like disgusting and there's so much profanity and sex and nudity and all that. But they're like, if you ever needed a bigger advert for the Catholic Church in the world, The Exorcist was it.
Yeah.
And I think there is actually, like, on records that kind of the amount of people, like, going to mass and stuff had a spike after The Exorcist came out. So stuff like that, like, I might not agree that it's kind of, like, hooray for conservatism as a kind of political thing. But in terms of kind of backing up a kind of Christian kind of viewpoint, The Exorcist did, and most horror movies are conservative in nature.
Well, doesn't ultimately Father questioning his faith end up being more Christian because of the experience?
Yep.
Yeah.
And he essentially sacrifices himself to save the soul of a young girl, and you know that sacrifice is ultimately heroic, and therefore all hail Jesus, essentially. But then there are some horror movies that are apparently liberal. On these random lists of things that they're not quite sure if they're actually liberal or not, Saw is on there, which I was tempted to do. Actually, it says the Saw franchise.
Murders people to teach them a lesson. but
because the thing is, like, people have done whole, and this is, I guess, one of the other ones I would have done. I'll get onto mine in a minute because it's coming up, but this one just intrigued me because people have done whole things on the whole fact that essentially Jigsaw's thing of essentially teaching people life lessons is very analogous to kind of flagellation and taking penance for stuff in just a more brutal way to come to have a kind of religious experience and come to accept the life they've got and live better lives. And if they don't, they're not worthy of the life. And that is almost a kind of vaguely pseudo-religious kind of outlook. So I don't know if they're going because of this. Jigsaw is bad, therefore it's meant to be like the Catholic Church is bad kind of thing.
Hoffman is essentially like a bastardized, false prophet preaching the gospel. Yes, it's all coming together. He's the Protestant movement.
Yeah, Jigsaw essentially is Jesus giving out life lessons.
Is that why he keeps coming back and sequel after sequel?
Yeah, we're just hearing his teachings written down decades later. Sorry, that one just caught my eye.
Carpenter and toy maker. Those are he's a creator. Oh,
like it's just some of them are weird. Yeah,
I did notice the Life of Brian is on this list in like the sacrilegious kind of anti-Christian kind of section. But in their description, they even admit that their take on it is wrong because they say in the plot summary, a man is born on the same day as Jesus and mistaken for the Messiah. Expect an hour and a half of rampant sacrilege to follow suit. But surely, if they're showing that Jesus is the Messiah and is what people worship, and this guy is just a guy, what's wrong with that? They're not denying Jesus' divinity, are they?
They're at the Sermon on the Mount where he says, "Blessed are the peacemakers."
Blessed are the cheesemakers, I think you'll find.
Speak up.
Yeah. It shows people getting stoned. It's not anti-stoning.
Yep. And one of the John Cleese has come out saying when we were making those movies, one of the things
we were very high.
Well, probably that as well, but he explicitly said we weren't making fun of people on the right or people on the left. We were just trying to poke fun at pretty much everyone, which is why as much as they make fun of the Romans and kind of authority and the military and stuff, they also have the whole kind of Judean People's Front, the People's Front of Judea campaign for free Galilee, all infighting, all these liberal groups fighting amongst themselves rather than doing anything. They will poke fun at everybody.
Well, they didn't point out it doesn't have Holy Grail on there, even though it is against clerically ordained leaders and pro-anarchist collectives. Although then again, that's pro-election, so I don't know.
Yeah, but also it's got God giving divine missions out, so...
That's better than a watery tart lobbing a scimitar.
Yeah, and telling people to get on with it. Anyway, we should move on before we just go through the entire list, and I realise half this is.
So from one French set Disney fairy tale to another.
Yeah, and it's quite funny because the first half of this, the first sentence, when they just go out attacking a movie just for it being awful, half the time I don't have anything wrong with it, which is the annoying thing. It's when they try and then pick out exact bones and why this is bad because it's liberal that I go, the kind of the political points I have an issue with. However, the first thing for their thing on the 2017 Beauty and the Beast with Emma Watson and Dan Stevens and other various people in it.
Real quick, I wonder how many times on the one hand and on the other and however are used in this article. It has to be an absurd amount of times.
Well, this one opens it. If you don't know, essentially, it's the 1994 Beauty and the Beast, but this was the live-action remake version. One of the first kind of live-action remake versions, and it's still one of the top 20 highest-grossing films of all time, something like that. Essentially, the reason this came out is because the merchandising department of Disney going, we aren't selling enough dresses. It's specifically the dresses. Let's be honest, that's why they pump out more Disney princess movies, is so they could sell the dresses at Disneyland,
which you can conveniently buy in the Disney Plus app.
Oh, you can buy the dress.
Yeah. Oh, every single thing you watch on Disney Plus has a link to shop.
It's got a little ad at the top.
Yeah.
Now, hasn't it?
If you think they're all about art, change your mind. They might have been at some point, and I honestly believe that Walt Disney originally was kind of there making art for fun and entertainment and that kind of thing. Whatever his views were, I think he started out kind of becoming an animator and a drawer just for the love of drawing and animating.
But then he discovered how much theme parks make.
Yeah.
I was going to say, this is like early 20s, I mean.
Yeah.
You know,
he started as an idealistic liberal. Gotcha.
Yeah. Or at least somebody that just liked drawing and animating, but then stuff took over. Yeah, so this is like, you know, they'd done other ones beforehand, but this one is the one that really kind of box office success. Okay, we can do this now with the live action remakes. And so the first thing on Conservapedia's little analysis of it goes, on the one hand, the 2017 film version of Beauty and the Beast is another victim in the film trend of needlessly and shamelessly remaking animated films or children's stories for the sake of earning easy revenue and capitalizing on current film trends in the modern soulless Hollywood studio system. And I go,
good point.
I agree with all of that. This is not starting out well.
And that is pro-conservative capitalist, but whatever.
Yeah, like, I completely agree with all of that. But then it goes, liberals seize the opportunity with the remake to exploit diversity and promote some liberal values within the Beauty and the Beast universe.
Cinematic universe.
That the story takes place in France in the 1700s, if not even before. That didn't mean that they didn't have darker skinned people walking around freely. This is something that's, I think, vastly, you know, overstated that, oh, anyone that was black was a slave. And it's like, well, no, quite a few of them did manage to earn freedom. Some of them were perhaps aristocrats that come over. It's not all just completely white except black slaves. That's not how the system worked. It was probably, you know, quite a lot of it, obviously, but it wasn't exactly all the way. And admittedly, I think this is a point that's just coming through just in general cultural history.
Conservatives have never heard of North Africa.
Yeah, well, and to be honest, I think the way that kind of history is taught in even kind of British kind of just general public schools, it's something which is kind of put across because now you do a whole section on the slave trade. And I think it's just one of those things that subconsciously almost gets, the idea goes into your head that if you're white, you are free, if you're black, you're a slave, where it's not 100% like that. So the whole idea that there might be black free people in France in the 1700s and somehow this is a liberal agenda, it's like, well, that's not.
There's also all like the film versions of these stories, whether they're westerns, whether they're historical epics, whatever, that have been, you know, like the first half of the, you know, 20th century. You know, well, yeah, they're made by filmmakers who wouldn't be including black actors in their casts. You know, so
and there were black. Kind of black cowboys and things like that, you know, and around to the whole thing. But so yeah, that's stupid. Amongst anything, the final result of the dive, and also it's like that they have issue with, not the massive beast monster in a castle that appears and disappears with the curse and all that. That apparently fantasy is fine. The idea that there might be normal black people living in a village in France? Oh, no, we can't be having this.
Let's be honest, a average black person living in France is probably closer politically aligned to the modern American conservative. I mean,
because of the time difference of like a couple 100 years, yeah.
Like, black people in France were not like preaching the homosexual agenda and wanting woke diversity.
No. It's so strange. Anyway, the final result of the diversity, inclusion, and cast is that it feels self-congratulatory in the sense of putting it all in for the sake of having it, rather than having it be just a part of the story in the film. So what they're saying is that by not having like black characters as the main characters, it's congratulating themselves. But I guarantee you, if Belle was black, there'd be an outlash from exactly the same reason. Like, what do they want? Essentially, no black people in it. But then they'll go, we're not against black people. And I say black, it's essentially anyone that's not like bleached white, you know, Latin, Asian, you know, Aboriginal peoples. I'm counting them all in the same thing of essentially not white. Because I do realize I go white and black and everyone.
Yeah, the socially constructed idea of white.
Yeah, and let's be honest, by white they mean kind of white. That's what we mean.
American conservatives will point out the Irish need not apply stuff and how poorly the Irish were treated in America, as if that validates any of their ideas about race today.
Admittedly, the Irish are so white they burn 30 seconds into going out in an Irish sun, but that's besides the point. Anyway, one notable example of this kind of liberal agenda is the filmmaker's decision to make Le Faux, Gaston's diminutive and bubbling sidekick, a homosexual who is conflicted with his feelings for Gaston. Although it should be noted in the actual script, it never specified Le Faux was homosexual. I also didn't get it in the film. Like, I don't know.
He makes eyes at a guy right at the end.
Like,
that's it.
So what are we doing here, really? It's never mentioned in the script.
I was amazed with this, by the way, because this should have a thing about taking kind of the directors' like personal lives, like really kind of making them a key point to their essays. Not once, amazingly, in this essay, do they notice that Bill Condon is an out gay man, the director. So that was an open goal for them. They didn't include it in this essay.
I'm also going to have to very quickly check and see if the original James Whale Frankenstein is in here, for the obvious reason of all the amount of like academia that essentially goes. It's just a kind of homosexual kind of allegory. Is ridiculous. There are like very famous directors that have less academic work than this possible interpretation of this one film from 1931.
Kieran, you were expecting them to have seen a film before the 1990s or 80s, and expecting them to have media literacy beyond good, bad.
They put Triumph of the Will down, which is 35.
They probably didn't see it. It's Nazi, therefore it is liberal.
Anyway, let's continue on with more of their weird stuff. Apparently, it resulted in AFA's 1 million moms responding to the change by calling for a boycott.
By the way, 1 million moms is a few hundred moms. Just let's be clear on that.
Apparently, the romantic interest in the Musketeer is now a transgender woman. Oh, how dare us! Anyway, it's not only atrocious, needless artistic decision of
the person he makes eyes at is a woman.
Now a transgender woman after being transformed into one during Gaston's siege, apparently.
He's one of Gaston's soldiers who's a bit flamboyant, and during the hubbub he gets a dress put on him, so that makes him transgender apparently.
What? And then that means the Le Fou thought he was a woman.
Yeah.
But I don't understand, because then it goes, not only is it an atrocious and needless artistic decision of the filmmakers to needlessly incorporate diversity simply for the sake of it, while you do that with heterosexuals, they're just there for the sake of it.
And I believe in the original animation, some of Gaston's henchmen were also humiliated by the walking furniture and stuff, and they get like makeup and dress put on, I think so.
Yeah,
that's not a change.
Filmmakers also changed history to the feminist agenda, similar to Mulan, Pocahontas, and Princess and the Frog. Changed history, yes. There's a massive beast and a castle and a curse. This is clearly exactly in line with how history works and stuff like that. Most infamously, villagers are shown to be explicitly tolerant of Belle learning to read and teaching girls to do the same. So they want girls to read. Okay, this is not what I expected to find from this.
Also, the idea that everybody autonomously did not want women to read in the 1700s. That was a collective decision and not controversial at all.
It's so weird. And then they go, despite the fact that the original author for the fairy tale was herself a woman. And we say original fairy tale, the one I think that they got this version of, and I say that because although I haven't read it, I was going to at one point, in the Hugh Owen Library at Aberystwyth University, there is a big collection of, like, from around the world, 120 odd versions of the Beauty and the Beast tale that I was going to read at some point for an assignment and never got round to it. So it's like, for thousands of years, versions of the Beauty and the Beast tale have been told. It's not specifically this one. Anyway, there are also hints at the anti-war message due to Gaston being turned into a war veteran. So what? Okay. He was an asshole in the original. He's an asshole now. Him being an anti-war veteran does not change how much you're meant to hate Gaston. Like, I don't see.
Which war did he serve in?
Yes. On the other hand, there are also
so confused.
surprisingly conservative messages in the film, significantly more than the 91. Namely, Christianity is treated in a far more positive light in this one, as one of the few friends Belle has in this version is the village chaplain named Père Robert, who is shown to be sympathetic to her bibliophilic nature and attempts to prevent Maurice from being sent to the asylum, and is later shown to be horrified at the formation of the mob against the beast. Okay, there is a cool Christian in it. Yes, like I don't think Disney would get away with going, oh my god, all the Catholics are evil. So I don't go on. Christianity, especially the Catholic Church, actively encouraged literacy, writing, and arithmetic amongst both genders, with girls being taught in convents or at home. Yeah, you still can't have female priests, though, can you?
Yeah. Also, not this time. No, they didn't. They were still very much in this era. The priests will tell you what the Bible says, and you're going to have to believe them.
I was going to say, and there are still very much advocates for slavery, but apparently teaching girls to read was fine. No.
Well, there was a whole Protestant Reformation over who gets to disseminate and decide information.
Yeah. Not in France, there wasn't. They were very much Catholic.
Good point.
Stuff about more random stuff. In addition, Lumiere, as well as Feather Duster, named Plumette in this version, are shown to be an actual loving couple. In the original, this was just hinted. Okay, this is now conservative, apparently. And the remake doesn't demonize traditional marriage. Notably, the remake cut out Gaston's inappropriate wedding proposal, as well as Ben shoving Gaston. To be honest, I don't know if these people are like pro-women or not. Because if you have Gaston's like inappropriate wedding proposal to begin with, surely her rejection of that would show that like yay women,
which is anti-patriarchal, which is what they.
But then, because literally the paragraph before they've gone, actually women learn to read is very good, and supporting themselves as being intelligent. But they're not allowed to make up their own minds on stuff, apparently. No. They're just allowed to read what other people have told them to read. As far as I can work out.
They can read as much as they want as long as they're at home.
They could read what their husband chooses for them to read.
It reminds me very much when I was in GCSE and I asked my English teacher, surely all of English is just opinion, and and there's no actual fact, and I can write what I want in response to a text. And she goes, at GCSE, you're not allowed to have an opinion. At A-level, you are allowed to have an opinion as long as it's also my opinion. And that feels very much like this. The forgiveness and redemption theme was also significantly more emphasized in the remake due to the beast ultimately forgiving Maurice after learning. It's like, yeah, but like, this is one of my issues with it. Like, the beast is still an asshole. Like, he's got a massive temper, turn people away. He was, a massive dick, and it's like essentially it's supporting the women's "I can change him" idea. It's like, no, get the fuck out of there! Like you're won over by a library, which essentially is what keep me there. But that's besides the point.
That's what the Enchanted Christmas is about.
There's a lot more beast doxing her in this, isn't there? It's
just. Admittedly, I haven't seen the original for sort of at least 5-6 years. So my comparison of the two is going to be fairly off. Yeah, but there's just some weird stuff. Like, they like some bits, but don't like others. So they're not quite sure whether this is conservative or not. The triplets, named the village lasses, in the remake were depicted as having haughtiness, arrogance, being jealous of Belle, as well as overall being nasty people, including briefly smirking at Belle when she's locked up, as well as being involved in the arrest of Maurice in the later attack on the castle. I don't get whether this is meant to be conservative or not. Like,
there is a parenthetical within the parenthetical as they go on before ever getting to the point of that, which there isn't one. There's just parentheses, bracket, way down, in bracket, way down, in parentheses. In addition, again, which is how the paragraph started. So this is 2 sentences in a row that are in addition.
Apparently, according to the film's director, as well as the actresses for them, one of them, the reasons the triplets were intensely jealous and spiteful of Belle was because their mother neglected them while doting on Belle, showcasing the dangers of parental neglect.
Okay.
Yes, but this isn't explicit in the film.
No.
So
and again, they've actually mentioned the director there, but didn't mention that he's a gay man.
no, and it's like, so is this like, are they against Belle? Are they for the triplets, against the triplets because of their jealousy? Like, what does this comment actually say for the values that they're trying to demonstrate through this analysis, if we can call it that? I've lost what they're trying to argue at this point. Whether I agree with it or not, I don't know what the point they're trying to make here.
Well, I'll make it easy.
The individual that has written this little specific piece.
Liberal Hollywood is jealous of the trad wife Belle, so they are bad. I don't know where they land on that. However,
it's just
the liberal agenda.
Yeah, yeah. As for the actual film itself, I should comment, like, not the worst film in existence. Oh. It looks quite nice. But considering it was made for like 250 mil, it should do.
I mean, he's a he's a big kind of stage director as well as film director, Bill Condon, and he makes the most of it being a big lavish musical. He really kind of really does put his all into those sequences and everything. I mean, I've got some issues with the film. I don't mind it overall, but not many of the issues are on that strange list that you just read.
It is a strange list.
Okay, so I finished reading the end of the parenthetical where it says, it is implied that they support traditional marriage, the triplets, and were demeaned in the film by being referred to in the script as the bimbettes and treated as dumb blondes for this reason. So I think the triplets are good, and liberal Hollywood is against them.
But most of this is in the script, which is not on the film because we can't read the script. So
I'm surprised it doesn't go into the director's commentary.
Like, you can't use the script for an argument. That's like using director's notes for like how we're going to shoot a scene and going, oh, he used the words, we want a liberal application of red on the walls here, therefore it's liberal. Like, it doesn't work like that. I think in the very first episode when we were talking about Tenet, we were saying you can't use, like, if it's not there clearly, you can't have an argument and go, oh, but it was meant this if it doesn't come across.
Has it ever come up, by the way? Why is the Republican symbol red?
I feel like I should know that, but I don't know. It's so idiots know which color their team is.
But literally, you think like propaganda days passing reds under the beds. What, you mean Republicans are under my beds?
I don't want anyone under my bed. Yeah. So I think if you really want to have a go and try to understand what they're trying to say with these, because a lot of it are just the big bambling kind of rambling stuff with no structure. And if I was kind of having a go at this, I would if one of my tutoring students kind of came up with this, I'd have a go at them for not being clear enough with their structure and their way of getting to a point across, and I would take marks off them for it. But
the incomplete sentences and parentheticals within parentheticals that don't clarify anything.
I was gonna say, there's such long sentences in this, like even H.P. Lovecraft would be having a fit right now. It's absolutely insane. So even if it's like, I disagree with a lot of the points, it's also just badly written, just straight up. It's just not well put across as an argument. So you're not doing yourself any favors. And it also, I think all of this kind of goes with the idea that in terms of, and this is one of my problems with academic criticism in general, even though this isn't academic or criticism, but you know my point of an analysis of a text, and I have this in academia as well.
This is the loosest version of criticism you could define.
Yeah, but it is an attempt, even if it's not academic or critical. But I have the same issue when, again, despite the fact I'm kind of working in academic criticism at the moment, this is besides the point. This is one of my issues with it, that people will kind of pick up on one thing and go, because of that, everything else, and they almost get like a paranoia about an idea they've had, and everything else then boosts this one concept. And everyone does this now with Easter eggs in films as well, and Marvel, and therefore everything means that it's actually this character or that character, where they picked up on a possible idea for something. I don't know, it's a character that lived in water, therefore they think it's one character from a water comic from the 1970s that hasn't been seen since. And every other allusion, there was a glass of water in the background of this episode 3 episodes later, therefore it's still continuing the water thing, you know? And a lot of this feels like exactly the same kind of thing, where you pick up on one idea and therefore everything else boosts that, even if it has nothing to do with it. Yeah. And that is a genuine danger of kind of criticism in general.
Well, at least with academic criticism, they have the intellectual honesty to go through and find the things that don't agree, or they will point out that this is a dissonance within the film, so it's unclear what there's thought put into. I mean, when I've read actual doctors doing criticism versus me writing Joker as communist, there's a difference.
Yeah. But yeah, this has the same issue, and I think if we can drag anything out of it, anybody that might be going into or a university or something like that, bearing in mind, at least in the UK, A-level results that are out, universities will be starting up again in a month's time. Be aware of that with your analysis and stuff, and just double check that it is actually genuinely a thing there, and that you're not pulling stuff out of the other side of your face, or whatever the phrase is, to be polite. Anyway, we should go on to one that actually really does offend.
By the way, Kieran's is
possible valid criticisms.
Kieran's is sorted under politically liberal live action films, and Sam's is anti-Christian and sacrilegious films.
Yeah, so
apparently After Earth is here. Almost any film directed by Louis Buñuel. I hadn't seen this before.
I love that it's just Louis Buñuel as his own category.
Buñuel, yeah, it's his own category. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so going from two French set animated kind of historical movies to French production of another historical kind of story, except this one's set in Italy. So it adapts a historical account by Judith C. Brown, which was this is a much better title than Benedetta, by the way. The original book's title was "In Modest Acts: The Life of a Lesbian Nun in Renaissance Italy." I should have kept that as is, because that's the main title. It's a much surprisingly, it's a much shorter actual kind of analysis of the film. I think they they seem to have it in for Paul Verhoeven in general, like throughout this list, really. Because they, but I mean, famously, he's a bit of a shock merchant, and liberal with his use of Christian-inspired imagery and kind of sensationalizing and kind of warping that. The description of the film: one of the most disgusting displays of blasphemy ever, made by liberal atheist Paul Verhoeven. That's wrong already. He's actually a devout Christian. It's just that that would hurt their arguments. They ignore that. Not only is he a devout Christian, he's actually part of quite a conservative sect of Christians in the Netherlands, and he even wrote an account of Jesus' life.
That is fascinating, and I want to know what his fellow church members think of his movies.
Yes, it's made by liberal atheist Paul Verhoeven. This is a film that dares to insult the sanctity of Catholic nuns by suggesting they are lesbians and scam artists. It also insults God by portraying Jesus engaging in graphic sexual acts during a dream sequence, and suggests that all church leaders rape and have sex with women of lesser stature.
Yeah, they don't all have sex with women. Some of them have sex with kids. Yeah. We know that.
Yeah. Not even the Virgin Mary is safe from ridicule in this awful monstrosity, as a statue of her is carved into a sex toy and used during some of the most graphic lesbian sex scenes. It's also somewhat a celebration of BDSM, as many of the torture scenes in the film are depicted as sexual. Show your workings on that one, please. I found those scenes quite harrowing and disturbing, personally. A horrendous film that was protested throughout the world, Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, in the United States, the patriotic pro-family group, the American TFP. Uh, uh, I thought that's the end of the sentence, but it just stops. I thought I was going to go somewhere. Um, it was also outright banned in Russia and Singapore. Well, yeah, okay, something being banned in Russia is probably not a point towards your argument, really. But, yeah, go.
I thought the Americans like hated the commies in Russia. So why would it being banned in Russia be a bad thing?
Yeah,
Surely this
yeah,
something the
Well,
Russians hate is good for us.
because Russians are pro-Christian and anti
yeah,
the woke liberal
yeah,
Hollywood agenda.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, and Russia and Singapore, I wouldn't be. It's not exactly surprising that two countries which still outlaw homosexuality have banned this, and I'm sure many other countries did as well. The film was a huge failure to producers with a budget of 21.3 million and only a 4.3 million from box office.
Yep. Please bear in mind that with the Beauty and the Beast one, they hated the fact it was just a money cash grab. And here they're laughing at the fact that it didn't make any money. Like I don't know what they want. Do they want movies to make money or not?
Yeah. So here's the thing. So it's loosely based on a real account, which is kind of interesting, and it's I mean, basically it's a story of a convent sister, kind of who basically she has a crisis of faith brought on by some by same-sex love affair with another nun, and by some vivid kind of religious visions. And basically, as it goes on, she becomes more convinced that Jesus is speaking through her, and that she's basically like his, almost like his prophet, kind of in human form. And these apparent miracles start happening around her in connection to her. And then there's always question in the air about, has she engineered them herself? Is she faking it, or is something generally kind of otherworldly, kind of divine happening to her? Is God speaking through her? I mean, there's what we'll say is, in terms of depiction of Jesus, okay, yeah, maybe you're on a slightly dodgy ground, kind of depicting him as like a really kind of sexual being and literally having like a like a sex dream with Jesus. I suppose might offend some Christians.
So
It's not exactly
basically, the
kind
Da
of
Vinci
pure.
Code
Yeah,
argument.
yeah, yeah. But also the Jesus in this that she communes with is a really kick-ass Jesus. I mean, it's the kind of Jesus that
Yeah.
I thought a lot of Christians would want to have. He's like
Jesus
striding
cutting
around,
down snakes with a
yeah, yeah,
sword,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, wielding a sword, and yeah, just using it to kill evil snakes and rapists and stuff. It's kind of it's a cool
He's
kick-ass
also the most
Jesus.
stereotypically like white thought of Jesus in existence.
Yeah, yeah,
If you
yeah.
think of
It would be,
Jesus and what he might look like, aka me,
yeah,
that's who
yeah,
appears
yeah,
in the
yeah.
film.
It's like American Sunday School Jesus, but with a
Yeah.
sword.
White Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah,
White Jesus has a gun, but yeah.
yeah. Can I just think of that Family Guy sketch now? Passion of the Christ 2, crucify this. Which they're actually making now, aren't they?
Are they the Family Guy version?
No,
No,
they're making Passion of the Christ 2.
Oh,
no.
From
I
Jimmy
was expecting Al Pacino to come back for God the Father 4.
oh my.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So it's what we'll say is kind of the idea of, obviously nuns, take their vows, obviously vow of chastity and everything like that. Vow of chastity for nuns and monks. I'm sure there were many who resorted to baser pleasures, out of desperation, out of just being locked up for so long, and sought those pleasures in each other. It's not saying that this one is not saying that all kind of nuns were kind of sinners and fakers and gay. They're just it's essentially it's two nuns out of the whole convent who have a relationship with each other, and one of them who thinks she's divine, and is potentially committing blasphemy by claiming that. Um,
I was going to say, surely the expulsion of these from the convent would be a win for conservatism.
Exactly.
You'd think.
I mean, it's literally once they found out, they're found guilty. Yeah. So the younger nun is, as you say, is expelled onto the street in shame. I was
going to say, spoiler, no spoilers.
She's put in rags and put out on the street and gets pelted with stuff by the townspeople. I mean, against the point that kind of implying that the men in the church aren't all that great, and fair enough, you're right. They're not, and they probably weren't. These were men of power, of ultimate authority, and they couldn't be they didn't have anyone to judge them, but they judged everyone else. It's like speaker for the Pope. It arrives and basically just tortures one of the nuns, and then interrogates Benedetta and tries to bring about her downfall. I mean, there's a nice scene where he's having his feet bathed by Benedetta. He says something like, would the she's become Mother Superior by this point, because people who believe her kind of divine message. And so the Mother Superior, she would bathe my feet. And she says, "Oh, of course, I've done this many times when I was a novice. It's nothing to me." Yeah. And then he says something about, "Oh, you better not try to seduce me using your whorish ways." And she says something on the lines of, "Oh, I won't question how my Lord knows about those whorish ways." It's just kind of turns it straight back on him,
Yeah, I will say it is a very good performance from whoever plays Benedetta, who's obviously
Virginie Efira,
and then also the nuncio Lambert Wilson, who
Lambert Wilson, always good value for money.
I was going to say, if the name is ringing any bells but not getting a picture, he's the Merovingian in the Matrix sequels, if nothing else.
I did keep. I know we speak French in this, but I did keep expecting to come out with lines about cause and effects.
He is one of those actors that occasionally he'll pop up, and I look at him. I did it for this, going, I know the face. Yeah. Where do I know the face? And I looked at him, it's like, I even know the name. Where? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, this is very much Paul Verhoeven joint. It's meant to be provocative. It's he likes naked bodies and he likes passion and brutal imagery and kind of not kind of questioning kind of preconceived kind of notions about like institutions and imagery and stuff like that. He kind of it's not so much ridiculing. So I think he is a man of faith, and he's not denying that Jesus is Jesus in this, and that Christianity is an important part of a lot of people's lives, especially people who dedicate their lives to serving them. I mean, it's quite interesting that they do kind of get a bit like with slight tangent here, but a bit like with The First Omen, they really do go into like the day-to-day life of like being a nun and kind of the procedure there, how you sway yourself to the life and marry yourself to God. And
I was going to say, this is the third nun film I've seen this year, because I also went and saw Immaculate as well.
Oh, thank you. I was like, what's the Sydney Sweeney one that I keep confusing with The First Nun?
This is my point, that those two movies are exactly the same, even though they're made several years apart. And by the way, Immaculate is on the list of worst liberal movies.
Yeah, but in terms of like, is she faking it? I mean, it does kind of stay on the fence to an extent. I mean, I think it doesn't really explain the stigmata and the kind of, she gets stigmata on the hands and feet. It's strongly implied, it's pretty much stays that the marks left by the crown of thorns on her forehead were self-inflicted. She was just completing the set basically, with a shard of something. But at the same time, she does seem to speak with like, she almost gets possessed by God, and speaks with like this a male voice. It's like when she's proclaiming a divinity and stuff, which doesn't seem to have a rational explanation for it. I don't think she could drop her voice that many octaves, to convincingly do that. So there is another kind of almost supernatural element to this. I mean, the real Benedetta, interestingly, because like I said, it's based on this real account. Kind of, you're left at the end, kind of thinking, did she get away with it? And she says, because her, a companion like leaves her when she won't admit to having faked her kind of
visions and possession,
yeah,
almost.
visions and everything like that. Yeah. So, but basically, the end caption basically it kind of says, she went back to the life of a nun, but she was basically ostracized. No one believed her, and she was denied her martyrdom. Because the nuncio wanted to execute her on the pyre, but she's rescued by the mob, and he's stabbed to bits, basically, not just before he dies of plague. Just a nice little irony. But yeah, the end text kind of says she goes back to her kind of life at the convent, but she was denied her martyrdom. She lives a long and lonely life, basically, kind of ostracized from her sisters, and only allowed to occasionally to eat with them while sitting on the floor, so she couldn't even sat at the table with them, while they have meals together. So it's almost like, I suppose saying, yeah, she probably was faking it, but she still had a faith, and
yeah.
Well, I'll interject here. She was faking it because God's not real. Sorry to be sacrilegious.
Well, but in terms of the account of it, obviously, it's obviously the various accounts over the centuries about miracles and everything like that.
And I was going to say, by faking it, we go, was she consciously faking it, or was it something kind of?
Well, with this movie, was she faking it? Can answer two questions.
Yeah.
And I will point out that having done a little bit of research on a kind of demonic possession recently for PhD stuff, that during this time in France, kind of this is late 1500s, early 1600s, but in those kind of around that period, a lot of women essentially did go into kind of the fake demonic possession stuff because essentially because they weren't allowed to speak the word of Christ for reasons. It's only men that could do that. To claim that you are possessed essentially by sometimes Christ, you could essentially get away with preaching without being done for. A lot of people then got execution and stuff like that for being possessed, and occasionally you could get possessed by the devil and say bad things, which then everyone would do the reverse psychology and go, oh well, this is obviously the way forward to Christ or whatever. So it was a known thing that women of that time would fake being possessed by both God and the devil in order to do that. And actually sometimes kind of smaller kind of factions of Catholicism or other denominations rising at the time, quite often some like parts of the Catholic Church would almost kind of endorse fake possessions that would kind of endorse those other ones, so that obviously you do the reverse psychology and go, well, Catholicism is the way forward kind of thing. So this was it wasn't like massively widespread. It's not like every town had 3 of them, but it was a known thing and it had been documented over the years.
That happened with the Crusades too. There was it was Bartholomew of something. He found this spear that he said was Jesus's, and the official guy who looked at relics and said if they were real or not said no, but the army said actually it is real because we need people to fight. So
I mean, the whole thing about like Catholic relics and stuff. I mean, like there's so many like fingers of like various prophets and saints around the world. I mean, I think there's if like every church like in the world who said they had one of these things were true, then all these saints would have like 18 fingers each.
I think one of the is it near? It's not Canterbury. Is it near Glastonbury or whatever? These kind of thing where they reckon was one of the possible last resting places of King Arthur, completely made up for tourism reasons in like the 1200s, essentially to boost money for kind of the monastery and stuff that was there. They made it up so the tourism would help get money in for the monks, essentially.
Why can't we live in a time where you can get away with that without people Googling? Oh.
We do. Have you not seen Your Nation, Jacob? Like,
oh, that's fair.
And ours,
I mean, a couple things about like, the general reception of the film. So, at the Cannes Film Festival press conference, Verhoeven said he was upset at the suggestion that the film was blasphemous. He said, "I do not understand really how you can be blasphemous about something that happened. You cannot basically change history after the fact. You can talk about that was wrong or not, but you can't change history. I think the word blasphemy, for me in this case, is stupid." Some critics pointed out that he may not understand the definition of blasphemous based on this response. But I mean, basically, so from that, you kind of think, okay, so he believes this happened. He believes the account. You know, there was something going on. You know, other than none faking it.
He thinks there was something supernatural.
Yeah, I think so. I think
wow.
That's what yeah.
That makes this movie even more awesome then, because it's like genuine.
Yeah. The film's North American premiere was protested by members of the American Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family and Property. The protesters were accompanied by bagpipes and signs that said, "Why the endless insults to Jesus?" and "We vehemently protest the blasphemous lesbian Benedetta that insults the sanctity of the Catholic nuns." In Russia, the film was banned completely. But yeah, we know that. Much of the controversy of the film concerned the use of a Maria statuette as a sex toy. According to Verhoeven, this was based on a description of historian Judith C. Brown, who did the account this was based on in her source novel Immodest Acts. This nice little tidbit. So lesbian acts were always punishable, but nuns would only get a death sentence when they had used an instrument in these sex acts. So, considering that not many nuns' lives ended on the pyre, the use of sex toys must have been quite uncommon. So yes, lesbian nuns did exist, but not many of them went to this extent. So.
Oh, you're telling me not many of them used a Mary statue as a dildo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good to know. I wouldn't have assumed that, so I'm glad it's been clarified.
I mean, I would say, as someone...
Sam would use one.
Someone not religious at all. I was going to say, I kind of understand that as be seen as a little bit dicey.
Yeah. Well, and
I think anything with iconography and kind of symbols of a faith, are kind of you're on kind of like shaky ground. It's almost like, I mean, it's a classic Verhoeven thing of kind of questioning these symbols and kind of playing with them and being deliberately provocative. But I say this is based. This is there was a historical account of this happening.
In the description, it says that Jesus was engaging in sex acts in a dream sequence. So how can that be blasphemous if it's in somebody's imagination? Then it's not real.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand.
But then by having it as a dream sequence, it suggests that actually Paul Verhoeven thinks that the entire Catholic Church is faking it and that Jesus isn't real and it's all dreams and therefore...
Or he thinks all dreams are real.
Yeah, well, the whole point of this is you can spin it any way you want and it will still end up with them being right.
Yeah. I mean, one quote from Verhoeven I will definitely agree with, and this applies to most of his films, really. He says, "In general, when people have sex, they take off their clothes. So I'm stunned by the fact that we don't want to look at the reality of life. Why this Puritanism has been introduced in films is, in my opinion, wrong." I mean, obviously, it's a big thing that, this is, in a religious order that this is actually happening in. But it did make me laugh. It's a line which I'm sure is true. The idea that when they're in like the medical ward bit of the convent, and they're kind of they're sleeping alongside each other, and Benedetta's line about, "Oh, we can't see each other undressed in." It's forbidden. It's forbidden for us to see each other unclothed and stuff. It's like, I know it goes back to like the whole modesty thing, but I don't know. It's a weird one, but in general, Verhoeven kind of, Verhoeven just generally says that, look, people are naked in my films because they would be naked in those situations. I'm not shy about it. You shouldn't be. I mean that is a general thing that you kind of get, look at like with conservative kind of movie views and stuff. It's like nudity automatically equals sex all the time. I mean, in this case, yes, they're getting naked to have sex, but generally speaking. It's that Puritanism, that's a kind of sex. You should never have sex scenes. You should never, show someone unclothed or showing passion for each other.
Well, Frollo shows us that you just have to be a woman, and that's good enough.
the very idea that still today a pair of boobs on screen will get you a higher certification than someone being stabbed in the head, as long as there's no visible blood on the screen. You know, it's so it's like sex and swearing is somehow worse for you than
violence,
physical harm to people. Yeah, it's bizarre, really.
It's a weird one. It's actually a very good movie, though. I
really enjoy Benedetta. I'm not saying it's not just because of the hot lesbian nuns, but it's not just
Sammy just defeated your whole last point.
It is one of those ones where even if you kind of don't like the film, it is a very well made and well crafted one.
I mean, just like the period details and everything like that, and the kind of, I like the pace of it as well. You really kind of get into like their kind of day-to-day life and everything like that, and the otherworldly elements brought into it just on periphery, like, you know, obviously with the speaking God, you know, through God's voice apparently, and you know, the red comet in the sky and everything like that. It's definitely an interesting one. I mean, it's amazing, really, that he kind of took this long for Verhoeven, you know, to actually get around to actual blasphemy, you know, because he seems to have offended like every other kind of audience at some point in his career. He doesn't seem to have lost any of his boldness, you know, as he you know gets into his 8th decade of life.
I can't help but notice just below Benedetta, it talks about the Book of Mormon, where it describes atheists Trey Parker and Matt Stone. But in a further entry on Team America World Police, it talks about how they are... Oh, where is it? They are anti-Hollywood, and the movie... maybe it's a different one. I don't know. But they talk about them being religious or libertarian and conservative. So... whether or not their movie is liberal depends on whether they're atheist or libertarian. Yeah.
I mean, I get kind of criticism of like the use of the iconography in this, and kind of you know, possibly taking offense at everything like that. You know, I mean, just like with you know, The Exorcist, you know, the famous crucifix scene. You know, it's when you using a symbol of your religion, you know, to you know.
Yep.
To, you know, in a way that it wasn't designed for.
Strange that.
But you know, I think overall it's a it's a good film, well performed, good looking, and
but is it
probably
liberal?
not one to watch with the family, but
no, definitely not. No, it's I mean, it shares some DNA with both your films, but you wouldn't be double billing this with Hunchback.
I was going to say they've all got French connections, so is that on the list? This is the question. No. One thing I will just say, because I've seen it and we've done it on a show several years ago, just their argument I find hilarious. Mother from 2017. This is the last one I'll do before we probably wrap it up. Leading by atheist actor Javier Bardem, and then goes, the film mocking Christianity and Bible by making God as poet. Apparently, God is not allowed to be a poet.
No.
Making God as poet.
Also, on the talk page, that movie was recommended because Breitbart said that it is anti-Christian. So they said, this source said it. Should we put it on the list? Not, I watched this movie personally and have made my decision.
Anyway, we should probably wrap this up.
Well, guys, I want to know, have you learned anything about American conservatism based on this episode?
I've learned they're inconsistent in what annoys them.
Yeah, they actually... No, well, I learned that they are consistent. It's that everything annoys them if it suits their argument.
Yeah.
Yes, and I have learned that it's always fun to spring things like this on my British friends for the culture shock.
No, don't worry, I will get a Wales episode in at some point.
Please, it would be so much more. What's the word? I would be a lot more at peace with a Wales episode than
an American episode.
Yeah.
We should clear out of people's earphones.
And also, do we think that the liberal Hollywood agenda is the goal of every film that comes out?
Yes, even if they're not made by Hollywood.
Yeah, okay, good point. All right, well, that's it for this episode, but we'll be back with something hopefully more normal next time. But until then, guys, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film at the Film Magazine. Where, if you want some more blasphemy, check out my top 10 Life of Brian moments. I've also done top 10 Mary Poppins moments. Is there anything blasphemous in that? Is she
Probably.
She uses magic in various places.
Oh yes, okay, yeah. So more blasphemy for me there. Yeah.
The mother is dead, so it's anti-nuclear family.
I like the fact that the whole magic thing they have issues with in various films, but apparently not in the Beauty and the Beast. That was one of the ones that, like, they didn't point that out yet with Harry Potter. It's all about magic and promoting sorcery. That's the issue they had with Kiki's Delivery Service.
Yeah. What did Jesus do to perform his miracles if not magic?
Who knows? Who knows?
How dare you ask that question, Sam?
As for me, I am judgmental in various places. I don't think I've got anything up in the last week. I might have done. I don't know. I will have stuff coming up, but I don't at the moment.
Oh, yeah, another Family Guy sketch answers that question. It's very mundane.
I mean, actually thinking about it, the one thing that me and Jacob have done recently in the last week is there is a video review for Alien Romulus that is now up. The other man behind the mic took my words and said them himself. And,
even though Kieran has a mic.
I know. I wasn't asked to do it, so.
Fair enough. And then I wrote a review of Strange Darling, which it came out last year, which is why it says 2023, even though it came out in 2024. It premiered.
Sam, can I just say, Sam, can we get our party poppers? Jacob has written something.
Yes.
Wow.
It's if Quentin Tarantino made a serial killer movie in 2024. That is.
He has some hype.
And then
I thought I had a kazoo, so I think it's upstairs.
And also, I'm going to recommend Margaret Rorty's review of the 2024 Crow, starring Bill Skarsgård and FKA Twigs, who I did not know was in it.
To be honest, it sounds like everyone should be recommending that review more than the film itself.
Yeah,
hey, spoilers.
I mean, knowing how much Margaret loves the original, because she did the anniversary review of that earlier this year.
To be honest, I think
I'm guessing it was painful for her.
From the sounds of it, even if you hate the original, I think you'd be recommending that more than the remake.
Yeah, I mean, someone died, and yeah, it's a better movie. That's insane. Let's see. What else do we recommend? To buy our stuff down in the description or give us money. We accept either. You can follow us at Second Cut Pod or email us at secondcutpod@gmail.com. That's how you can get contact with the show. So that is it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Adios.
Goodbye.